ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to Colts Coffee and Conversation. My name is Carl.
Holly.
And it's nice to be with us again. I hope you watched the first episode. Today we're going to be talking about the second episode of Wild Wild Country. If you have not seen episode 1, and if you've not heard our first episode of episode 1, then don't listen. Quite frankly, you need to do that first before you jump the gun here.
Yes, go back and listen to it.
Yes, it's a very informative. The setup's pretty much there. Now we're going to get into start to get into a little sink our teeth into a little bit more. So
yes, and there's something else you want to mention?
Yes, of course. We have to do our disclaimer. That's right, our disclaimer. We're just standard people, regular people. We are Joe and Jane Smith. We go to work every day. We do our thing. We're just basically looking at it at a perspective that is an outside perspective, non-biased perspective. We're just kind of taking a look at breaking it down. You know, that's pretty much the skinny of it. So let's go ahead and dive in and sink our teeth into it. Go ahead, Holly.
Okay, so the episode starts with the Oregon Attorney General. Is that right?
Yeah,
and,
Robert Weaver.
Okay, and he is speaking about this whole thing about the Rajneesh taking the Big Muddy Ranch in Oregon in 1981.
That's correct. Mm-hmm. He is the assistant, actually, a district attorney, where he kind of sets it up to where he's a very driven man. Talks about the only thing he had to worry about when he was the assistant U.S. district attorney was to be great at what he was, and he was. Just a little side note that he's a very smart man. Just so you guys know, he's a graduate of Notre Dame, a cum laude actually, at Notre Dame, and also at Notre Dame Law. So there you go. And also just a side note, he represented Tonya Harding. Just letting you know, so in case he looks familiar.
Now he said something at the end of his section that was a quote that you would like to say.
Yeah, the quote was, "This was not motivated by greed. This was evil."
Yes, this was pure evil.
Pure evil, yeah.
So the first part that we're going to break down is it was when they arrived.
Yes, all three of the...
now, who is they?
We're talking about Ma Shanti B, Swami, and Sheila.
Okay, and they're part of what organization?
They are part of they're members of the Rajneesh group.
Okay, and they, yes.
Yes,
okay.
So basically it opens up with beautiful scenery. And before we even go there, we need to also take a note that there is a hidden character in all these episodes that we are watching all together, and that's the music. I think it's important that we point that out because, believe it or not, they set the tone for everything, and this is where the beautiful music comes in, which gives a kind of sense of peace and opens up to Wasco County, Oregon. And it's beautiful rolling hills and mountains, and it's kind of like it looks like it's in the looks like in like October or maybe early January or February in Oregon. But it opens up, and we're talking about Miss Ma Shanti B. Her first impressions are that she was told. Now Ma Shanti B, of course, is just a real quick thing, is that she was in Pune. She was in Pune of the ashram. Well, she was told she's going to fly her and her entire family to Oregon. She jokingly said she didn't know where Oregon was. She had an idea, but not so much.
Right, and they were supposed to get clothes that would fit in with America, right?
That's correct. Well, she said it was all a big blur. The only thing that she does remember is to buy clothes that were acceptable in America, like jeans and T-shirts. But of course, orange. It had to be the color orange. Color orange. But when she was in that sleep, as you call it, verbatim, sleepy little town of Antelope, she said that they go through this sleepy town and they're driving up to the ranch, and she said she was overwhelmed, and it was rugged and it was vast.
It was wild country.
Yes,
that's nice. What I think that was part of maybe where the documentarians took that. It made it a title.
You know what?
This documentary.
It wouldn't surprise me. And then Swami, he was the lawyer that obviously is a member of the Rajneesh. He was shocked that they were in the geographically center of nowhere, as he calls it.
He was laughing.
And he describes the bus ride, how it was windy, and then he gets to the valley, and just breath is taken away. He's just overwhelmed with such pure, raw beauty of the place.
Okay, and then the last person?
Sheila, the one you love to hate and hate to love. She, her whole thing is that they shows the footage of her with the big old huge map, and she's looking around and she's saying that wherever you see, you own. You know, because remember the ranch was 64 1,000 acres.
Yes. And what is that? It's more like, what was that in square miles?
100 square miles. So basically, if you take, for a vision, you take the whole city of Manhattan from the Wall Street district area all the way up to Harlem. You take that, top to bottom, left to right, and you add Brooklyn on top of it.
Yeah, that's quite a bit.
That's a vast chunk of land.
And of course, it was mountainous, and they had.
It was mountainous and was
and it
rugged.
also had lakes or so on
well,
there.
Well, not necessarily. We'll get to that in a second.
Later.
Yeah. But there was nobody else there. It was very rugged, very mountainous. It was 19 miles from Antelope. You know, she mentioned about Antelope itself. There was, when she was there, she barely saw 5 people walking around. She called it a ghost town. She said that it was clear that they arrived at the Promised Land. That's what she called it.
All right.
Well, that was their experience about as far as the land goes.
Okay.
Now they wanted to set up. Now now mind you, nothing's been built yet. They get there, and what they're doing is that they're setting up their infrastructure. Basically, is what they're trying to. They decided to become self-government. Now, in the state of Oregon, there are certain laws to become self-government, which basically to create their own town, their own city. Their laws is that 150 citizens can create their own community / city. So what happened was that they decided to do a vote. It was 154.
And they were registered voters, so these were American registered voters.
That is correct, and they voted unanimously, 154, unanimously to incorporate. Now, they use that word a lot in incorporate, basically means become a city. So just in case they're...
A municipality.
Yeah.
And when the benefits of being a municipality is they can have their own building codes.
Yes.
They can levy taxes.
Well, what they can do is they can issue, like you said, its own building permits, so they don't have to go through any red tape. They can have their own law enforcement.
Yes.
They can have their own fire department. They're self-governing, and also that they decided to also add public transportation.
Yes, and this is very good. They were actually creating a planned city.
That's correct, and that city, which we should probably mention its name since we're talking about, is Rajneeshpuram. That's when it was established in 1982.
Now, I remember in this documentary that they had like a long table. It appeared that they had some kind of city council there.
Yeah, it was their first city council meeting.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, this is in the embryonic stage of them getting everything together. Mind you, when they did come over, they only had 100 people or so at this time, because they still had to get prepared. But Sheila's comments in regarding to creating the Rajneeshpuram was that where people can, and this is a quote, people can live in harmony, people can live in love. It's an example for all the universe. That's her quote in regarding her love for
and then
what she wanted to do.
Did Swami say something about that?
Yeah, Swami, he was fascinated by the idea. He said the city would be based on love, compassion, and sharing, and not ownership, greed, and anger. That's his words.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. And then you had good little Miss Sunshine. Her name is Ma Prem Sunshine, but we're just going to call her Sunshine. No, she's a character that makes her grandiose debut of this story.
Yes,
yeah,
exactly. And what was her function at that time?
Well, she was in consumer relations, which pretty much is a public figure, a speaking figure for basically to be used for the press.
Right.
The press,
okay.
yeah. And when they're talking about the building of the city of Rajneeshpuram, it was to use advanced technology to fuse harmony and nature together.
Okay, so now let's get back into what did they start building? What did they actually accomplish?
Since if you've taken a look at the first episode, you know, they were doing their meditations and their worshiping or whatever.
That was in Pune, right?
That was in Pune. That's correct. Well, at this point of the story, Sheila, she had specific.
She wanted specific people to come.
Yes,
people that knew how to do things, architects, plumbers, people that were willing to work.
Yeah, she said her quote, "Lazy people we don't want." The way she said it was funny. Meditators are a later priority. She kind of did a hand gesture of like they're down there, because now it's time for the work.
Yes,
and that's what she did.
Now, I forgot. Oh, what was the next person that was talking?
The next person,
Sunshine.
the next person after Sunshine, he was in the first episode, and this was the gentleman's name we forgot. I forgot his name. John Nadada. We're just going to call him Jay. Jay Onda. That's actually the slower pronunciation.
Right.
We're going to call him Jay. He's the president of the Rajneesh International.
Even to this day.
To this day, yeah, he's still active in the Rajneesh movement. Now he knew where to get the experts, the architects, the designers, all the brain.
Right,
the
and his
the
career prior to this was a commercial banker.
Yes, well, yes, you are correct. He basically had the option to gather a pool of all the creative people and brainstorm to create an actual city from scratch. Is what was said. And,
yeah, they even included city planners.
Yeah, they did include city planners. Now, the work was very tenuous. They worked in 3 to 4 shifts. This is per
around the clock, right?
Well, basically around the clock, mostly a minimum 16-hour day. Yeah. They worked till they dropped, basically. The original amount of people were about roughly around 100 in the beginning of the infrastructure, both men and women. It's very important that they add to that because they really preface that not only men do it, the women got dirty too. They did a lot of the construction as well. They did a lot of the digging. They did bulldozer work, the tractor, and they show the footage of it. So,
yes,
they really made a point to make sure that the women were also very, important in the build. Now, what they were building was they built a power plant for about 10,000 people. But built the roads, big pressure on building the roads.
Yes,
plumbing all over the ranch, internal plumbing, and then A-frames, the A-frame houses, the housing. They were townhomes, A-frame townhomes. Then they built a shopping center. They had banking. They had an operating bank, which they had in Poon also as well. They just brought the bank.
But now this is American.
It's an American
and this
bank,
is,
yes.
There's a lot of things. Interesting to know what kind of banking system that was in those days. I don't think it would fly these days.
Probably
because
not.
Of pre 9/11. There's a whole different deal.
It's a whole different animal.
Yeah, but in those days it was probably a regional bank, and they
probably they probably ran it like a credit union does today.
Yeah,
local
something of that
union.
nation.
Yeah, they also had a boutique. But of course, the color scheme was limited, as they put it.
Was it red and orange?
Red and orange. That's about it. You can kind of see when Swami was talking about it, it's like a little limited on the color, but the color
But they also had a meditation center.
We'll talk about that. But there's another couple things we need to discuss first before we get to that impressive build. Well, there's 2 impressive builds there's 3 total. Actually, I apologize.
Okay, so
there's 3 total. The first one was the airport. They built an airport where you can actually have airplanes land.
Well, yes, because it was way out in the middle of nowhere, and if they wanted to have special VIPs, now this is not the airport where the regular Rajneeshis would go. I believe they would go and land in Portland or somewhere, and then they would go get them. But or do you think that they had all the Rajneeshis come on their own charter flights?
That's a fantastic question. I wouldn't put it past him if they.
But I thought it was more for the convenience of the upper echelons.
I would assume so, but it was to this day it's still a running airport.
Yes, but I just thought, well, maybe But go ahead. Yes, they did an airport.
Then they built a dam, a big, huge, massive dam with.
In fact, they said they had little sub dams or what I forgot. What
those are. What are those called? That was the.
Well, they had a system of dams.
Yeah, it was a system of dams. I'm trying to check dams. They're called check dams.
All right.
But we're talking about the big one. This is the one where you see the scene where they're flying it over, and there's that monument, the bird, the town logo of Rajneeshpuram, the bird. That thing was massive. From up top, it looked a little small, but no, that was actually a huge with a circular with the dove or whatever.
Yes.
That they built that. That was not there, and then also the 10,000 person meditation hall. That was an impressive build. That's basically what it is. If you take a look at the structure itself, it looks like just a large metal tent. But when I saw them building the framing of it, they also had insulation installed first before they put the cap on it. So it's an impressive build. I mean, when you take a look at it, because they even showed an aerial view, that thing was huge.
Well, they said they could put up to 10,000 people in it.
Yeah. Sheila called it once it was all done, because it didn't take them. The funny thing is, it didn't take them that long to build all this because they had a massive amount of workers
solar power.
They did do solar power as well. Well, that's where we're getting into the agricultural. But Sheila, on the finished product, she called it the Shangri-La that everybody dreamed of. Everybody wanted to be a part of the Shangri-La, but they never made it as far as build it. She called it the Shangri-La.
Right, because they've never done anything like this in the existence of the earth or the world.
No, that's accurate.
As I'm thinking about it, the only thing that would come close in imagination to it was Epcot Center that Walt Disney wanted to create, never was able to, but it was the city of the future.
Yes.
So in their mind, this was their city of the future. This was their, like
this was their Mecca, if you want to call it that. This was supposed to be, this was supposed to be the international headquarters of their movement.
Yes. Okay, so let's go on.
Now, but the thing is that we also need to understand is that since they did all the infrastructure, and they're going to have all these people here, quote unquote, 10,000 people.
Yeah, we're talking plumbing too for everything.
Well, plumbing was there, but now you got to talk about food. That's important part, the agricultural part. Now they used cutting edge, even
in those days.
In those days, even now is what we use today with the low water usage but the high reward. If you take a look at how they were doing it, they literally were using rocky soil. There's a scene where you see where they actually have dynamite and they're blowing things up, big old huge plots. There's a lot of rich soil underneath all that heavy, thick rock. They removed all of that. They did they called it a land reclamation.
Yes.
It's a land reclamation project, and they had their own chickens. They show the chickens like this huge, massive things of chickens, horses, and cattle. They made their own. Obviously, they had their own eggs because of the chickens. They made their own cheese there. They made their own beef.
Right, so they were self-sustaining, and it was organic also, right?
Yeah, and the check dams were the important part of it, because this is where they said that they were turning the desert green. And when they're talking about this part of the thing, you see the overlaying of these beautiful rivers and just green everywhere. And the wildlife was coming back.
Yes,
because at this time there was really not much wildlife, because I guess in the past, from what was said in the when they were finished and were talking about the land reclamation project, is that the land was used so much that the soil was pretty much dead. So that's why they had to dig in a few layers. So anyway, they feel that, well, Sheila deserved that. They felt they deserved a Nobel Prize for that, which I have to agree. This one I agree with Sheila that what they did, transforming of the land and how they did it, it's very impressive.
And it was also in a fairly short period.
Fairly short period of time, because at this time the Bhagwan wasn't there yet. He arrives now in August of 1981. They showed up. This was all. I think they did all this in a couple months. They were busy bees. So we'll talk about the arrival of the Bhagwan. Okay. Now, the way Sheila describes it, because we talked in the first episode about how she has a romantic, fantasical, if that's a word, relationship with the Bhagwan. She's in love with them, but it's a different type of love.
Right, so she was enamored with him.
She was enamored with him.
And so she ended up, he was her master. This was a story that we talked about in the first episode.
Yes, the way she's describing it is like when a bride is seeing her husband for the first time. That's why I'm bringing it up. Right for the first time, so she wanted everything perfect. So, of course, they did a spot to clean up all over his specific living quarters. They rolled out 400 green lawn carpets. And if you guys are familiar with the green lawn carpets, I think it's like 1 feet by 2. So 4,000, so they laid it. Basically, it's an instant lawn. They bought peacocks, and they show the beautiful peacocks. And she did a really good number to impress him for the first impression.
Right, and the airport was done, so he was able to fly right in there.
Absolutely. You show him getting off the plane and into a vehicle, going straight in his Rolls Royce, going straight to the place. The question that I had prior to this was, where was he when they were building all this? Well, he was...
Right, because he had to leave India.
He had to leave India. So he had to go somewhere. Well, I found out that he went to a Rajneesh retreat center in Kipps Castle, Montclair, New Jersey. So that's where he was being taken care of. He was diagnosed with prelapsed discs. So from what I read, that they were flying the medication and stuff from London, from a Rajneesh doctor in London, over to New Jersey. So anyway, they had the welcoming music, and basically they rolled out the quote-unquote red carpet for him. Yeah. So basically, he's now officially in his chair. The wind's blowing through. She's talking very poetic in regarding to
And it was like she accomplished quite a bit.
Yes, and he was very pleased because she said that you could see the love in his eyes for the people that did the work.
Okay.
But now we have the flip side of all this, and that's the town folks.
Right, so there's people in Antelope.
There's people in Antelope, so it shows that the quote unquote then the strangers arrived. That's how the townspeople looked them as that. Because there's a scene where you see where the Bhagwan's walking down the street with Sheila, and there's a sea of people in orange walking down the street of Antelope. So if you come from a small town like that and you see this happening, it raises an eyebrow. It raises an eyebrow. And also during this time, there was I couldn't find the publication who published it, but there was a national publication in regards to the sex guru is here kind of thing. So
Okay.
that kind of stirred up a nasty, mindset as well in the
Okay.
people's minds. But there's Mr. and Mrs. McGreer,
Okay.
who are the local ranchers. It's the couple, the older couple. The Mr. McGreer is like, where did all the nonsense come from? When he saw them walking down the street, and then his wife was like, it was the red clothing. It's just not normal for them to see stuff like this.
And these are all younger people too.
And they're younger, yeah. It's just come from a small, quiet town, and then this happens. He's bringing, just walking down the street, double, maybe triple the population of the town. So there's an intimidation factor there, and I can see it. Mr. John Bowman, when he said when they showed up, they had the look. They just called it the look, where he was under. They looked like they were under a trance. Mr. John Silverstreet, I call him Silverfoot, but it's Silver Street. He thought that they were weird, and he said that he was a hypnotist before he came here. So he said if you crossed your arms, it would give him that sense of go away kind of thing. So, that's what he did. He crossed.
And they
his arms.
did go away, right?
Yeah, they did for a minute.
I mean,
yeah.
as far as just
like being
personal
approachable,
space.
yeah, being approachable. And then the local people overall said that they were not ready for all this because it's a sleepy, quiet town. It's a retirement town. They just weren't ready for all this.
Right.
And then this is where we bring into our newest character or person in the story, and that is the mayor, Mayor Margaret Hill. Now, we talk about the mayor. The position of the mayor. Do you elaborate on it, or do you want to?
Well, the because it was such a small town, mainly about 40 people, they would take turns being mayor of the town. It happened to be her turn to be mayor of the town.
Right.
Now, from what the people say, especially I guess maybe the McGreers, that's saying that it was kind of good because she was very strong.
She was. They did an interview with her saying that they were truly welcome to the community at first.
Okay.
Because it's just, something fresh, something new.
Now, they were 19 miles away from Antelope.
But the only thing is, if they needed supplies or anything,
That's where they had to go.
they had to go there because that's the closest town by far. So that's where they would go because they had a local store. We'll get into that later. But then they started pushing their weight around a little bit. Now, when the story broke out that the Rashnishis were there in Antelope, she started receiving a ton of mail and a ton of letters and things
And articles, right?
articles that were from all parts of the world about how these people are, that it's a sex cult, and one of them was a lady from Australia looking for her daughter, that she doesn't know where they're at, and that
So they were kind of getting alarmed.
Yes, they were being
now
warned.
people are being warning them about this. I'm sorry, the mayor.
Margaret Hill.
Margaret Hill. So then she starts looking into it.
Yes.
All right,
And
and she's talking to the other townspeople about
Yeah,
it.
mostly the McGreers. The McGreers were one of the.
Now, was
actives.
there one thing? It was a documentary that they ended up watching. It was about the ashram in Pune.
The ashram in Pune?
Yeah.
Yes, we can jump to that if you want.
Well, I don't know. Are we jumping?
Yeah, we're jumping a little bit because we
Okay.
still have to talk about the locals. Well, what the main thing is that what the locals felt. This is not what was really happening. This is how they felt. At the
How
time.
they felt. Okay.
At the times, they felt that the Rajneesh, they thought they would just lay down and let them do whatever they wanted, but they didn't think they would put up a fight, and they thought that they were not very smart and very ignorant.
Okay, so now the Rajneeshis were thinking that the townspeople would just lay down and let them mow them over,
Yes.
and that they were very unintelligent.
That's correct. Now during this time was getting a lot of obviously not just local attention, but national attention and a little bit of global attention. Another character steps into play here, and that's William Gary, the Deputy Attorney General. That he comes into play. Now, during this time, this was just well, he openly was worried. Basically, during this time is when Jonestown hit.
Now, okay, now that was actually, I know this date. It was in November 18th, 1978.
78, that's correct.
Yes, and I remember that, and I remember hearing about that on the news, and it affected me quite a bit.
Yeah, I read the book 3 times. I've read the book 3 times in regarding that. That's a fascinating.
Right, we may do a series on that.
Yeah, we'll probably do a series on that, but if you guys aren't aware of it, Google it. It's jaw-dropping, but just a kind of a rough breakdown is Jonestown situation. They didn't want a repeat of Jonestown. Jonestown was where it was run by Jim Jones.
Yeah.
He was a preacher where he convinced and or killed 917 people.
So
that's where the comment of drinking the Kool-Aid.
So what happened is he was a person, very strong personality based on Christianity. I wouldn't call them Christians, but that's because we're Christians and we have our standards. They hid under that umbrella. But they did hide under that umbrella. And they were from the Bay Area of San Francisco Bay Area. So he had a very diverse congregation, black, white, all kinds of difference. But he ended up buying a large piece of land in Guyana, which is in South America.
That's correct. Mm-hmm.
Long story short, they had their Shangri-La, they had all their farming, they had their communal living and everything.
Yes.
So there was some alarm bells going off, and at that time, Congressman Leo Ryan came to see this place, and he was accompanied by others. But what happened is, he saw what was going on. They were seemingly, I didn't review this too much, but from what I recall, as they were leaving, somebody from Jonestown ended up shooting and killing him.
Well, yes. What happened was that he was basically kind of just humoring the people that were constantly berating him about
right, because their kids were there. You need to look at this. It's dangerous.
Yes, it just something wasn't quote unquote right in the Kool-Aid. And that's where the term comes from, is from these people. Is that he went over to take a look, took an investigative look on it. For the most part, it looked like people were pretty happy, but then someone tried to stab him at the place itself, at Jonestown, and that's when he's like, okay, you know what?
We're going to get out.
If you want to leave, I'm leaving tomorrow. Mm-hmm. Come with us. What happened was that they basically got ambushed at the airport where Leo Ryan was unfortunately killed.
Yes, and so because of that, obviously Jim Jones knew it was going to be bad for them, and so he decided to. He told everybody. Well, they poisoned this Kool-Aid.
They poisoned the Kool-Aid with, I think, cyanide.
It doesn't matter. It was bad.
Doesn't matter. Either it was bad. Once you drank it, it was done.
Yeah. So we won't go into any more of that. So this was why they were so upset and concerned, because it's not the belief system, it's not of the Christian or Hindu or this or that. It was the fact that there was a strong personality,
a lot of similarity, that
a lot of people that were disenfranchised or they were vulnerable flocked to this strong personality. They lived communally. They were separated from, the normal society. And there was like a lot of earmarks of this type of thing. And I'm telling you, this was only 1981.
Yeah, this is only just...
It's, 3 years after
the incident, and it was still fresh.
It was very fresh.
Well, and also what also brought the attention to this as well is that Leo Ryan's daughter, Shannon Ryan, was actually a Rajneesh.
Yes,
so which brought more to her name. She changed her name to Pritam.
Yes, and she took her insurance money that she benefited from her father's death and gave it to the Rajneeshis,
yes, to
enter into their society. Because of course, you have to. You can't just be poor. You have to.
Got to bring something to the table.
Everything, as far as money goes into their organization, and then you live.
Well, yeah, and they did a story with her on that, which it was very ironic, because that's what William Gary was worried about. And she mentioned that if my dad survived Guyana, he would have come here and say he would have my support, because it's nothing like that.
Which is an interesting fact, because you can't say what somebody would really like or not like.
That
but
is
they're
true.
dead.
That is true. But they thought the Rajneeshi thought that all this was ridiculous as far as the attention goes.
Right, and I did want to mention, I'm sorry interrupting, but that the Swami did not like the comparison of Jonestown, and it like he didn't see the correlation.
No,
he
he didn't.
thought, well, those were Christians and we're not, so it's like apples to oranges. We're nothing like them.
He's talking about a lifestyle versus a belief system.
Yes,
Yeah. Well, yeah, he brushed that off really quick.
yes,
Very quick. And mind you, Swami's still a Rajneesh.
yes.
So it's not like
Right.
he never left the belief system. So.
And I don't think that Jim Jones initially was preparing everyone to die.
No, he wasn't.
It was a last minute decision.
Decision.
So, and that was
correct.
where the Swami was wrong.
Yeah,
But anyway,
Shannon Ryan or Pritam, she's still a Rajneeshi. I looked it up. She's still involved heavily, and she married one of the upper echelons as well. They were married, I think, in 82, 83, or oh no, I'm sorry, 84, and they're still married to this day. So
Okay.
they're still in. But yes, now we're going to get to the movie. Now there was a movie that was done by a German director named Wolfgang. I forgot his last name. It was called Ashram at Pune. Now, they released this in the town's movie theater. And this was to kind of show, hey, this is what we're all about. Now,
well, no, actually, was it the Rajneeshis wanted the town to see it? I don't think so.
I'm not sure. I'm not very...
No, because it wasn't flattering to them.
No, it wasn't.
So I don't think they were for it. I think that somebody said, "Hey, look, this is a documentary."
Well, from what I understand, the BBC
yes.
was trying to get some access to who the Rajneeshis were. Mind you, this is a global movement at this point. So, I mean, there were worship centers everywhere all over the world. So, but no one would ever talk about what really goes on inside behind the
right.
doors.
So this
was basically, since the producer Wolfgang, who was a Rajneesh, he decided to make this movie. Now, of course, everybody from Antelope, which is not a lot, 40.
But I think from around that area too.
But in the area too, but the townspeople went to go see what their neighbors
Right.
were like. Because they really didn't know. They just see, okay, there's an old guy with the beard, Rolls Royce, odd. They rebuilt this thing, okay. Wearing orange clothes, strange, but, you know. But what happened was that during this, I'm not going to get too much detail about what, because they do show the clips of what happened, which was interesting to say the least. They show what was happening, and of course they talk about the 5 stages of...
Right, and so they showed basically what they were doing in their meditation center.
Meditation. This was basically, he recorded a meditation
yes.
a session. Meditation
and
session.
when you have that many people together and what they did, it was violent at times and uncontrolled at times. There was nothing to stop anybody from doing anything. And it was shocking that this was going on, that this would even be legal at this point.
Well, John Silverstreet went and saw it, and his comment was it was a shock to the system.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
It was a shock to the system, and he just, like when he was talking about it, he felt like a little kid who just saw something he shouldn't have saw.
Yeah, and if anybody really wants to see it, it's
on
on
YouTube.
YouTube. It's on YouTube.
Oh, you see? Oh God, no,
Yeah.
I'm not even
No.
No, I'm not scratching that itch. But he said it was a shock to the system. Now, Miss Ashanti B, she said in regards to this that there was a footage of one of the members that she knew. His name was Taya Feast, I believe his name was. She said that in the earlier days there was no limitation, so it was okay to record. She noticed that it was an older recording of one of the sessions, but nonetheless it was okay at that time. Where Sheila, she instantly got defensive and said it was a violation of the group of individuals, but she never denied that. Now this is what we do. She didn't deny it. Like, no, this is not what it's about. She said, yeah, well, it was a violation of
Okay,
privacy.
so when the townspeople saw that, and even if they didn't see it, I'm sure that people would have told them about it.
No. Everybody, to my understanding, everybody in the town saw it.
Okay.
Everybody did, and that's where the couple, the McPhees,
The McGreers.
I'm sorry, the McGreers. Mrs. McGreer, she said that she used that Emma Burke quote that all that's necessary for evil is for good men to do nothing. So this is after they watched that movie. This is when the township kind of took a step back and said, "Okay, we're in it to win it." is where the fight begins.
Right. I think there was something like Mrs. McGreer said, like it really wasn't something they ever thought they would have to do in their life.
Yeah, it was one of those things where they were at that point. The township was at that point where it's like, this is not what we asked for. This is not what we wanted. But if we don't do something, it's only going to get worse.
Right. Okay. What was the next step then for Antelope?
Well, this is where the Thousand Friends of Oregon come into play.
Okay, so let me talk about the Thousand Friends of Oregon.
Sure.
I think, do I need to start with Bill Bowerman?
Yeah,
and then
I think it's important that you set up Bill Bowerman first to understand
the
concept of the Thousand Friends of Oregon.
So John Bowerman is one of the interviewed persons in this documentary. His father is Bill Bowerman. Now, Bill Bowerman and the whole family, great-great-grandfathers, started Antelope in 1869.
Right, and just I'm sorry to interrupt.
Yes.
This is the guy I call the guy with a hat.
Okay, yes.
Yeah.
John Bowerman. Now, his father was very unique person. Let's a little bit about him. He served in World War II, and he fought in the mountains in Italy. So he was so good that he went behind enemy lines and he convinced the German 8th Army to surrender.
Yes.
Okay? And he did receive many decorations for that. He went on after World War II to the University of Oregon at Eugene and trained track and field. Now, one of the comments that one of them made, I think it was the Silver Street one, that he said this Bill Bowerman was like Queen Elizabeth.
Yeah, Queen of England. Yeah.
Yeah, in London. He was like that in Eugene. He was just
godlike figure.
Well, not
but
godlike. No,
but
not godlike. But he was. Oh well. Anyway, he was very prominent.
There's a statue of him.
Yeah.
He has his own statue.
So what happened with him is he won 4 collegiate championships in track and field.
National titles.
And people started going, wow, this is really great. So they started coming out, supporting it. He was, a lot of... So he ended up getting 12 national championships in
track and field in 12 different
individual events.
In individual events, yeah, that was unheard of.
Then the Olympic Committee wanted him to train track and field for the Olympics in 1972 in Munich, but unfortunately he was there during the massacre of the Israeli Olympic team.
That's correct.
And it really kind of affected him to the where after he was completed with that, he retired from coaching.
Yes.
So he was, thinking about things, and he said, man, American shoemakers are not making very good athletic shoes. Let me see what I can do. So he took a waffle iron. Are you going to say something?
Yeah, real quick. It wasn't athletic shoes as a whole. It was track and field shoes.
Okay, sorry.
Yeah, it's okay.
Track and field shoes, and he took a waffle iron and he got some rubber and he kind of, crunched it. Yeah, he melted it into this waffle iron. He put it on some old shoes. He tried to see how that was. Anyway, it started the company. What was that company?
Nike Incorporated.
Yes. So he was a co-founder of Nike.
That's correct.
His son John Bowerman mentioned of his father he never intended to become famous and rich, but he ended up when they sold and went public, he became a very wealthy man. So of course Bill Bowerman, in that sense, is probably inherited quite a bit, plus the ranch land and all. And let's mention that the McGreers had big ranch land.
Yeah.
They possibly had quite a bit of money. And also that Silver Street person.
Yeah.
This is going to make a difference in the next part of the story, in my opinion. We come now to 1,000 Friends of Oregon. Now, they were a group of environmental and land use organization.
Yes.
So they brought a lawsuit against the Rajneesh and wanted to have them remove all the buildings that were on the ranch.
That's correct.
What the thing was is, hey, ranch land's ranch land, farmland's farmland, and cities are for cities.
That's correct.
And so the ranchers of that, which would be the Bowerman, the McGreers, and the Silver Street, and all. They were figuring, why are we getting a hotel with 400 people and a city of 10,000 people in the middle of nowhere? So this is the angle that they were looking at to try to stop this city. The Thousand Friends of Oregon had money and influence, and so, Bill Bowerman was alive at the time. He didn't like what was going on. He had connections, so brought the Thousand Friends of Oregon in to a lawsuit against them. Now, this really set off Sheila.
Yeah.
Okay? And she was very angry. Do you have anything to say about that?
Well, I mean, what we're finding out is that what was said externally was not understood, or I'm sorry, what they told people externally, their real plan was to create a city, but from what it looks like, they originally were just being an agricultural group. That's what they sold
Correct.
it as.
So yeah, few people there doing the farming, and when they started it was seeming
It was
like
agricultural, yes, because to my understanding, if they knew they were trying to build a city in that ranch, they would have never sold it to them in the first place. So yeah, but she called the Thousand Friends of Oregon as a poison. They used the law of land use to derail the dream of having a city.
One of the things that they wanted to do was tear down all the buildings.
Yeah, everything, all the hard work that they did, yes.
Yeah, they wanted to tear them all down. And I mean, yes, that would upset anybody after all that effort and
absolutely.
money and everything. And it was kind of like, how dare you even think about that?
That's human. That's human nature. Yeah.
Yes. Now, one of the
blame
things...
Sheila for being that mad.
Right. So, but one of the things that she said and was that she, quote, "They will paint those bulldozers with my blood if it comes to bulldozers. And I will be proud to be under those bulldozers. If they doubt my determination, they are stupid. They are unintelligent," close quote.
Yeah.
And she said it, and she meant it.
Yeah, she did. Yeah, she, at this point, is what Swami said, that Sheila got her back lifted. Now, that's the terminology when you have an angry dog, the back first, or cat, the back starts to lift. So, yeah.
Okay, so what was the next step then that the Rajneeshis were going to do, because they could not have Rajneeshpuram out at the Big Muddy Ranch?
So what happened is that Sheila's found loopholes. She found loopholes in a bunch of stuff, and she said, you know what, if I can't have my city at Rajneeshpuram at the Big Muddy Ranch, I'm just going to buy my town. I'm going to buy my town. So she started purchasing properties all around the city of Antelope. Now,
because about 50% of all...
Over 50% of the property was for sale at this time, so she bought every bit of it.
And at asking price.
At asking price, yeah, that's something that we need to get across, is that she was a businesswoman first and foremost. Yet she was very upset, but she also had the money backing, so hence the loophole. She's like, well, okay, I'm going to purchase this. I'm going to give you full price for what the asking price.
And a lot of these people, they put their property up for years and nothing.
Years and not a nibble. Mm-hmm. Yeah, so she bought everything that they could.
And then they started moving people into these homes.
That's correct.
Or the businesses, because they needed a printing or a print shop. They needed, different.
They needed commerce because they couldn't use some of the buildings that they built for what they wanted to originally because of the lawsuit.
So they were housing people. So now that people of Antelope, now they actually have Rajneeshis living in the neighborhoods.
Yeah, instead of 19 miles away, they're next door. Yeah.
Okay.
Well, but the first thing that they did buy, and that was the first domino that fell as far as the townspeople really turning on him, was the cafe.
Right. That cafe was a sort of a social center.
It was their social center. Yes, that's correct. Where they would come in and have breakfast, hang out, all that kind of thing. What are you going to do instead of a retirement home, hanging out in the TV room? Right.
And so it's kind of like the Varsity Burger of Anaheim, right?
Right, pretty much. Bought it, and I guess from what the news report said is that instead of fried bacon on the grill, it's fried bananas on the grill.
Right, so they changed it up. They changed the name to...
Zorba the Buddha.
Zorba the Buddha. There's a reason for it. I don't remember right now what it was. But anyway, so there you go. And of course, that really set the townspeople on edge about that.
Yeah, they're saying, what the townspeople were saying, that what happened to the cafe is the perfect example of what's happening to their town.
Okay.
And now this is where that same time, Sheila comes into play, because Sheila's not shy of the camera at all. She basically said that the town's bigoted, and she was sick and tired of their Mayflower mentality.
Yes, so the Mayflower mentality is, hey, we were here first.
Yeah,
okay.
We were here first. So,
but then, of course, we can go all the way back to the, indigenous people.
Yeah.
The, Native Americans were here first. Then the Mayflower came. It's all about that. And she's a person that came over from India.
Yeah.
And she was college educated
She's
here
not
in the
dumb by
United
any stretch
States.
of the imagination.
So she knew all about this kind of stuff.
Absolutely, yeah.
And she knew how to, how to speak. So
yeah.
go ahead.
And a large amount of the people actually did sell their properties. They sold it.
Well, okay, so let's just go back to the reason that they sold was it was asking price, maybe even a little bit more.
Maybe.
They wanted to get out of this situation. They they were retirees.
It was fixed income.
Right. And they did not have the resources or the heart to do any of this fighting. They may have not even, lived there all their lives. So they took the money and they ran. Mm-hmm. But the Bowermans, the McGreers, the Silver Street, they had money.
Yeah.
Because they were there forever. They were ranchers.
Yeah.
So that's kind of the difference in why those people, the other people, sold out so quickly and ran for it.
Well, yeah. I mean, I don't blame him, but even Mr. Silver Street said that, people just, he explained it. They're on a fixed income. I don't blame them,
Because Sheila mentioned, she says, well, they can take the price that I offer them, or eventually...
if they don't sell now, they will sell at my price.
Yes.
So you were going to take a loss. If you're not going to do it, we'll just wait till you're that desperate. I'll throw half a check at you and you'll still take it just to get out. Right. So basically that's where she the intimidation factor kicks in. Mm-hmm. Because Mr. Silver Street said that, here comes Sheila with her diamond rings and her checkbook and da-da-da-da-da.
Yeah.
Write you a check. And he was telling us a story about his neighbor where he said, I'm never selling.
He had a shotgun on his porch.
I'm never selling. Then Sheila shows up, gives him a check, and the next day
2 weeks later,
he's gone.
He's gone.
Packed his stuff and he left, yeah.
Okay. So now we have this going on. So the townspeople decided they were going to have a vote.
Well, the thing is that once the people who stayed, we got to talk about the people who stayed a little bit. They felt outnumbered because there are some people who just weren't there, not going to leave. They're just going to stay there. They feel that they lost control. They thought that they were being taken over, which they were in a sense because they're buying all the property. They said after the first year, everybody wanted them gone. That was not a Rajneesh. So this is when they decided to fight, and then they started to have Bag the Bhagwan paraphernalia all over the town. So that's their way of fighting back. And they were talking about how the townspeople... Well, this is the Rajneesh saying about the townspeople, where they were shooting holes in their signs. They desecrated their hotel in Portland, where it was the Rajneesh Hotel. It was twice in one day, where they spray painted. One of the phrases was, get out, of course, and then they said, red is dead. And they were also telling any Rajneesh in the town that they were going to blow their heads off. So, and that's when Sunshine...
Well, yeah, because these people are more like country people. They were, hunters, farmers, ranchers, more of that mindset.
Well,
that kind of American culture is,
Well,
you just want to take care of the situation, kind of like Wild West. Like you would if it were in the 1850s or something.
Yeah, and then Sunshine, where she says this phrase where, pick your enemies carefully because the way those enemies fight, that's what you become.
Yes.
So it started to get nasty.
So now it gets nasty. So you have the townspeople retaliating. Now what happened?
Well, now the Rajneesh decided to retaliate back.
Okay, and what did they do?
And what they were doing was they were actually shining bright lights in the windows at the middle of the night, all hours of the day, all hours of the night. They were filming them and taking photos of them no matter what they were doing, mowing the lawn, walking.
Right, so it's a power of intimidation.
Power of intimidation, which sounds a little familiar about another belief system, but we won't go into it. But they're basically harassing them 24/7. So after the townsfolk were just pretty much out of options at this point because, mind you, they're outnumbered. Just by just sheer numbered people, they're outnumbered by at least 5-1 at this point. Because I think at this point there's about 7,000 people. No, I think it's 7,000. No, maybe a little bit less than that.
Okay, so let's just. But the point is that we need to get to this point where they're going to kill their town. Okay, that's where I want to go to.
That's next.
Yeah. All right, let's go.
So that's when they decide the townspeople decide to disincorporate. Basically, at this point the town had the mentality of better dead than red.
Okay, so what you can do is they had some kind of what do they sign it? Anyway, they had it on a ballot to disincorporate.
That's correct. Yeah. So basically, it was a vote. It came up to the vote. Now, when they did the vote, the turnout on the vote was 120%. This actually had national coverage at this point. This story was getting super juicy for the press. So it got definitely national coverage. And the final tally was for the disincorporate. The final was 42 yes, 55 no. So the Rajneeshi ended up winning the town.
Right. That's a big blow right there.
Yes.
To the townsfolk, and a victory for the Rajneesh.
That's correct. Mm-hmm.
Because in their minds, if I were one of them, I'd be happy too.
Yes, but the townsfolk at this point were at their... they're at this point, they're defeated. They're completely defeated. All they have left is to go to the next level. Instead of local, they got to go to the U.S. District Attorney's Office.
Okay, so they did go there, and what was said?
They were complaining. When are you going to do anything about this Rajneesh? Because the coverage was there as far as the press goes. So it's not like they're not aware of what's going on. But legally, they don't see anything wrong.
No, because as was mentioned by Swami, I believe, he thought it was funny because everything that they were doing at that point up to that was legal. They were just following the laws of what was set through the Constitution, the state government, the whole thing, the municipalities. This could happen to almost anybody if you think about it. Normally it doesn't go that quickly. Like if you have a city like in our county, you might take 20 years before you see a demographic change. Right? But this is within, a year.
A year, yeah. So it's definitely a year. So what the district attorney said in 1982 wasn't a priority for the U.S. Attorney's Office.
No, because there was nothing there to look into.
Yeah, but then he said, 1983, whole different story.
Okay. That was the end of...
for the most part, but then this is where you see the turn and shift for the Rajneeshis as being I don't know if you want to say a villainous, but this is where it's a call to arms type of thing, and that's the hotel bombing in Portland.
Oh, did they talk? They talked about this.
They did talk about this.
So tell us about what that.
So basically, what happened was the gentleman checked in to one of the hotel rooms, went and planted a bomb in the hotel room, came down, grabbed 2 more bags, went up, and then nobody knows about that individual. But then the bomb went off.
And it was about in the middle of the night.
In the middle of the night, 3 bombs total went off. And what happened was that they used this as a call to arms because they think it's the townspeople that are doing it.
No, this hotel was in Portland.
It's in Portland. It's in Portland, Oregon, yes.
Yeah, okay. So, and it was owned by the Rajneeshis.
It was the Rajneeshi Hotel, or Hotel Rajneesh.
Okay.
But to further the interest, it wasn't... It was actually an Islamic militant group that actually...
But that came up way later.
That came out way later, yes. But it's just kind of have an idea of the townspeople were not the only ones that didn't like this.
Okay,
folks.
so it was a flashpoint for Sheila.
Yes, they use this. You'll see the mayor of Rajneesh make his first appearance, but it was a quote that they use as a call to arms to protect themselves. Now Sheila at this point and this is her quote: "If I didn't take the measures to protect my community, then no one else would do it." So she took it upon herself to weaponize, and so they bought a weapons ranch. And Sheila feels that if you didn't, this is her quote, that if you don't feel that way about your children, your community, or your master, then you be pathetic. Now she also ends the episode with a phrase that Bhagwan, what he said in the beginning, and he says, and I quote, "I'm not Jesus and I'm not Gandhi. When Jesus says turn the other cheek, you take both of their cheeks." and that's game, set, match for the episode.
Okay. This now sets it sets the scene for the next step. As I've seen it before, but I haven't reviewed it. The third episode, so we will go into that next time, and I can't wait. And I think it's a very compelling story.
Absolutely.
So with that, we're wrapped up.
We are wrapped up.
Okay.
All right. Have a good night.